Yes, very good morning. Today we are going to talk about introduction in ECG reading. Now you know very well, you will see only what you look for. So if you got a good knowledge, you will see what is the change in an ECG and you will recognize only what you know. So if you got a good knowledge, then only you can recognize whether it is a normal or it is abnormal. We'll talk only what you need to know and you will see what you know. So I'll try to make it as simple as possible, but sometimes it may be difficult. And you will remember only what you understand. So we are going to talk on ECG. I am Dr. Janak J. Patel. The more we learn, less we know. So I'm going to talk regarding an ECG introduction. As many times you see an ECG and you listen to the person who is explaining you, the more you will know. So you will have to see more ECG and you will have to listen to a person who is explaining you what are the changes, what are normal, what are abnormal. Then only you will know more and more. ECG is not engine, clutch and gear. But ECG is ECG. That is electrical activity generated by a heart, that is electro, cardio and recording, that is we call graphic. So we'll be talking under introduction, what are the different types of instruments, what are the different electrodes, what is there in a ECG paper, conductive tissue, what are the components of ECG, what is a normal ECG tracing. With this knowledge, we'll be able to help the person. So ultimate aim is to help the patient. So ECG is a recording of an electrical potential generated by myocardium during systole and diastole. So it is not engine, clutch and gear, but it is electro means electrical activity, cardio means heart, and graphy means recording. The main indication of getting an ECG is when a person gets a chest pain, we want to find out whether it is a cardiac or non-cardiac. Person who is having palpitation, person who is having syncope or pre-syncope, to find out is there any cardiac cause for syncope or pre-syncope. In a person with hypertension, diabetes, valvular heart disease, congestive heart failure, uh, carditis, cardiomyopathy, pericardial disease, ischemic heart disease, etc. We want to know what is the effect on the myocardium. So it helps in those conditions. ECG is also taken for LIC purpose, insurance purpose, general insurance, and in a person who is having anxiety or he is going for a health checkup. ECG will be also helpful in a person with a hypothyroidism and hypothyroidism. There are some changes which can be picked up on an ECG. It is also useful in some of the electrolyte imbalance like potassium, calcium and magnesium, hypo and hyper. In those conditions, there are some changes in the ECG. If those are picked up, you can suspect electrolyte imbalance, particularly of potassium, calcium and magnesium. It is also useful in a respiratory condition like pulmonary embolism. We call pulmonary embolism resulting into an acute cor pulmonale, and also in a case of a chronic cor pulmonale. Some drugs do have effect on an ECG like tricyclic antidepressants, digoxin, amiodarone, calcium channel blocker, etc. All this you can pick up on ECG. There are some familial disorders which can end up with sudden cardiac death, cardiac arrhythmias, particularly like right ventricular dysrhythmic syndrome, or we call as a ARVD. We call arrhythmogenic right ventricular dysplasia. So in that, Brugada syndromes, long QT, short QT, etc. Last indication should not be there for an ECG purpose. It should not be for earning money. There are some other conditions also which will be picked up by ECG like arrhythmias, ischemia or infarct, pericarditis, chamber hypertrophy. I already mentioned regarding electrolyte imbalance, particularly digoxin toxicity and QT prolongation in some drugs toxicity, hypothermia, mixed edema, WPW syndrome, LGL syndrome, etc. Now this particular slide shows you the first ECG machine. You can see this is the first ECG machine. How big was the ECG machine, and this was how the ECG tracing was taken in 1924. While now we have got the latest computerized a small packed ECG machine which will have a record of 12 ECGs simultaneously, and it will also give you a print of what is there in a ECG, but never utilize that for a diagnostic purpose. Normally we have got an ECG machine with a 10 electrodes. 4 are for attachment to the limbs and 6 leads are for the 6 chest leads. Some ECG machine has got only 5 electrodes, where 4 are for the limbs and 1 is for chest electrode, which you will have to change the position when you go on changing the chest leads. And these are usually in a manual variety where 5 electrodes cable is utilized. Now there are latest version we call as a cordless, where usually you don't require a attachment to a chest. So it can be manual, it can be automatic. By and large majority of them are now automatic. It can record single lead at a time, or it can record 3 lead at a time, or some can record 6 lead at a time, and majority of the ECG which are utilized in ICU etc., they will record 12 lead at a time. There are other modes of taking an ECG. The standard mode is a 12 lead ECG which you can finish up if you get an attachment etc., you can finish up within 10 seconds or few minutes. Holter monitor will record only rhythm, not a complete ECG, and that you can record for 2 days. Event recorder can record for 7 days. Again, all this technique will record only rhythm. MCOT, that is medical mobile cardiac outpatient telemetry, that is external loop recorder, can record for 30 days, and you can record that rhythm strip whenever a person gets symptoms. And internal loop recorder can record for more than 3 years also. These are all the different techniques which can be utilized. This is a Holter monitor. These are all what we call as a different devices which are used for internal loop and external loop recorders. And this is cardio memo, which is utilized in an MCOT we call as a mobile cardiac outpatient telemetry, and this is an external loop recorders. While recording an ECG, person should be well relaxed. He should be in a supine position or maybe in a semi-Fowler position. Bladder should be empty. Legs should not be crossed. Person should be well relaxed. There should be no electronic instrument in that room which will disturb the ECG recording. You have to give an instruction to the patient that arms should be well relaxed. Patient legs should not be crossed. All electrical devices should be removed close to the ECG monitoring and recording, like cell phones, electronic instruments, other electronic instruments. If you get an artifacts in a limb leads, try to see is because of the loose attachment or because of a break in the wire or poor contacts. Try to remove that artifacts, because that may be because of improper loose or defective electrodes or improper grounding also. You can see in this ECG, these are normal tracing and suddenly there is an artifact. This should not be there while taking a record. Normally there are 4 standard limb leads. Green is attached to the left leg, black is attached to the right leg, red is attached to the right limb, and yellow is attached to the left limb. These are standard colors, but even with that you should read on a lead, because on a lead it is mentioned RA, LA, RL, LL. you should read those particular and attach accordingly. If there is a malposition of these leads, it will result in an abnormal ECG. So again, while taking an ECG, there should be a quiet room, person should be well relaxed, no electrical disturbances, the room should be fully illuminated, warm environment should be there, person should have an empty bladder, you should have a good ECG machine without any defects, there should be no break in the wire, etc. By and large, always utilize the automatic machine. Manual machines are not of a good quality, so don't try to use that. You might have a single lead recorder or multi-lead recorder, like a 3-lead recorder or a 6-lead recorder. Either it can be with a 10 cables or 5 cables, or maybe a cordless. Have a proper attachment, and there should be complete ECG recording. What do you mean by complete ECG recording? ECG recording should have a complete 12 leads. That is lead 1, lead 2, lead 3, AVR, AVL, AVF, which are called augmented leads. These are 6 limb leads and chase leads V1 to V6. In each lead, minimum there should be 3 complexes or even more than 3 complexes. It should not be a single complex. And this should be associated with a long rhythm strip, at least minimum for 6 seconds or even more than 6 seconds up to 10 seconds. In some cases, we require V7, V8, V9, particularly if you are suspecting posterior wall infarct or posterior lateral myocardial infarctions. We call as a true posterior wall MI, or we call as a posterior lateral MI. If you are suspecting a high lateral MI, anterolateral MI, electrodes on a chest leads should be placed on one space higher, we call in a third space. Whenever you are suspecting dextrocardia or right ventricular RVMI, you should place chest leads V3R, V4I, V6R. This is a must in case of a dextrocardia and RVMI. In certain cases, particularly when you want to record a LV component and LA component, you can have an esophageal leads. In some cases, you can have a pericardial leads. Endocardial leads are taken particularly when a pacing is being done. And when a person is pushed on a pacemaker, you take a pacemaker complexes. Again repeating, whenever you take an ECG, there should be minimum 3 complexes in each leads and all the 12 leads, and long rhythm strips minimum of 6 seconds or more than 6 seconds. Usually in a rhythm strip, L2 lead is taken as a long strip. Sometimes L2 is also associated with V2 as a long strip, depending upon what you want to record. These are the placement on a chest leads. V1 is placed in a 4th intercostal space on the right sternal border. V2 is placed at the 4th intercostal space on the left sternal border. V3 is between V2 and V4. V4 is 5th intercostal space mid clavicular line. V5 is 5th intercostal space anterior axillary line, and V6 is in a mid axillary line. These are the standard position which should be utilized, and it should be placed properly. It should be in a firm contact with the skin. There should not be any loose contact. V7, V8 and V9 are taken whenever you are suspecting a true posterior wall MI or you are suspecting a posterior lateral infarct. So V7 is placed in a 5th intercostal space in a posterior axillary line. V8 is in a mid scapular region, and V9 is between scapula and vertebral space in a 5th intercostal space. So these are the standard leads. This is again a diagram showing you where is the position of a V7, V8 and V9. This is V6. V7 is placed on a posterior axillary line, and V8 is placed below the scapula, and V9 is between scapula and spinous process. So this is the position, and this is what is shown in a right side lead. V2 becomes V1, V1 becomes V2R, then V3R, V4R, V5R. It is just on the right side lead. Means V3 will be between V2 and V4. V4 will be on the right side mid clavicular line, 5th intercostal space. V5 will be anterior axillary line and V6 will be mid axillary line. And if you take a V7R, that will be in a posterior axillary line, and that is on the right side. And you have to write down R after V1, V2, V3, etc. That means you have taken a ECG leads on right side. And this is also a diagram which shows you where you place V7, V8, V9. This is V1, this is V2, this is V3, V4, V5, this is V6, V7 is posterior axillary line, V8 is below the scapula, and V9 is between scapula and vertebra. This is the position. While on the right side, this is the way it is being taken. V1, V2, V3R, V4R, V5, V6R, etc. And this is in a horizontal place. You can see those particular, they are in the same horizontal level below the scapula. Now this is a diagram which shows you how the electrical activity is being generated. SA node is the main pacemaker which generates the electrical activity, or we call it electrical potential, and it will depolarize atrium followed by ventricles. So impulse will travel from SA node to AV node. While traveling from SA node to AV node, it will travel through three bundles, that is Wenckebach, Thorel and Purkinje. And while traveling to the AV node, it will delay little bit, and then it will activate the interventricular septum, and then it will pass through bundle of his, left bundle, right bundle, then Purkinje fibers, and it will activate left ventricle first, followed by right ventricle first. While in an atrium, right atrium is activated first, followed by a left atrium activation. And this is how you see the ECG, and that will give rise to P wave, followed by PR interval, QRS complex, ST segment, and T wave. And this is what you come across in a normal. SA node activity will be there first. So if electrical impulse is coming towards the electrode, what is recording, you will have a positive deflection, and if the impulse is going away from the electrodes, it will have a negative deflection. Standard rule. SA node will generate an intrinsic pacemaker activity as 60 to 100 beats per minute. AV node will have a 40 to 60 beats per minute, and ventricle will have a 20 to 40 per minute. Indirectly, if SA node is working perfectly, it will have a control over AV node and ventricle. When SA node fails, then atrium will take over or AV node will take over, and AV node will beat at 40 to 60 per minute. And when SA and AV node fails, then ventricle will take over and ventricle will beat at 20 to 40 per minute. These are called backup pacemakers. AV node and ventricle are called backup pacemakers. When we go through a ECG paper has got a horizontal line and vertical line. Horizontal line is for timings, vertical line is for a voltage, or we call as a amplitude. And in a vertical lines, it gives rise to a height of a complexes, particularly P wave, QRS complex, ST elevation, and height of T waves. While timing is for P wave timings, PR interval timing, QRS complex timing, and QT interval timings. These are the way we usually measure. So one small square is 0.04 second in a horizontal line and 0.1 millivolt in a vertical line. That is, we call as an amplitude or a voltage. And one small box contains 5 small square in horizontal and 5 small square in vertical, meaning one large box will have 5 small box. So horizontal lines wise it will be 0.2 second, that is 0.04 multiplied by 5, and vertical wise it will be 0.5 millivolt. So this is a small box and this is a large box calculation. So whenever a ECG machine is put on a 25 millimeter per second speed, so 25 millimeter paper will come out in 1 second. That means one small box will be 1 millimeter, so it will be 0.04 second. and vertical amplitude is roughly we call as a 0.1 millivolt for small square, and 10 small box, or we call as a 10 millimeter, will be equal to 1 millivolt. And this is how, if you have a record with a 50 millimeter speed, one small box will be zero point 0.1 second. So you have to keep it in mind, this particular thing, that because when the measurement is a 50 millimeter speed, the box will move out very slowly. It will move out fast, sorry, it will move out fast. So 50 boxes, 50 millimeter will come out in 1 second. So that you have to keep it in mind. So usually we use some of the nomenclature in a ECG recording. First positive deflection, which is because of atrial depolarization, is called P wave, followed by isoelectric line we call as a PR segment. From beginning of the P wave till beginning of the QRS complex we call as a PR interval, which is corresponding to the delay what takes place in a AV node. First negative wave in a QRS complex is called Q. First positive wave we call as R, and second negative wave we call as a S. This is called as a QRS segment, which corresponds to ventricular depolarization, followed by again an isoelectric line we call as an ST segment, followed by a upright wave we call as a T wave, and usually T wave is not followed by another upright wave, but whenever it is there we call that as a U wave. From beginning of the Q wave till end of the T wave we call that as a QT interval. These are all the different terms which are being utilized. So we have got a P wave, T wave and U wave, which are upright wave. This is a P wave, this is a T wave, and this is a U wave. We have got one complex which is consisting of three components, Q, R and S component. We call as a QRS complex, which is corresponding to ventricular systole. We have got two segments, we call as a PR segment and ST segment. And we have got two intervals from beginning of the P wave till beginning of the Q wave. Still we call that as a PR interval, we don't call PQ interval. And when from the beginning of the Q wave till end of the T wave, we call as a QT interval. And from the beginning of the end of the R wave, which ends into a negative, and when the upslope starts, that is called as a J point. So in some disease there is a J point elevation. So these are all the different, again this is same explained in a little another pattern. So you can go through this at a leisure time. This is called as a J point. Sorry, this is called as a J point. So J point elevation is of importance in some of the ECG recording. When you go from V1 to V6, in V1 you have got a small R wave followed by a S wave, and slowly the R wave component goes on increasing. So there is a slowly marching of a R wave, and in V5, V6 the R wave become tall. Usually there is a small Q wave and there may be a small S wave, or usually S wave is absent. This is the usual R wave tracing which will be going from V1 to V6. And in a V3, V4 you will have R and S almost equal, we call as a transition zone. These are the nomenclature which are being utilized for QRS complex. If there is no first negative wave, there is only positive wave, we write down as a capital R. If it is a small amplitude, we write down a small r. If first component is negative, followed by a R component, and if R is taller than Q wave, then we write down a small q followed by a capital R. If there is a small q followed by a R and a very small S wave, we write down small q followed by a capital R followed by a small s. If Q wave is very deep and R wave is small and S wave is small, we write down capital Q followed by R and S, which are small. If there is no positive wave, only negative wave, we usually write down as a Q and S both capital. If Q is prominent and R is small, we write down Q capital and R small. If R is tall and S is small, R capital and S small. If R is small and S is big, then R is written as a small and S is written as a capital. If both Q and if you got a very small negative wave, we write down a small q and s. If first component is positive, followed by a deep second component we call as a S wave, and then second positive wave we call this as a R dash. Depending upon the amplitude, we write down R small, S capital, and R dash, which is small. Here you can see R, first R is small, second R is big. So we write down R small, S capital, and second R is capital. That is R dash is capital. These are the nomenclature which you utilize while reporting in a QRS complexes. Same. Now we are going through what we call as a 12 lead ECG recording and how it looks like. If you know normal, then only you can pick up abnormal. So in a limb leads, lead 1, lead 2, lead 3, all P wave, QRS complex and T wave are all upright. You can see in this, lead 1, P wave is upright, QRS complex is upright, T wave is upright. Lead 2 is also, lead 3 also. All P wave, QRS complex and T wave are upright. While in augmented lead, we call AVR, AVL and AVF. In AVR, all are negative. So P wave is negative, QRS complex is negative, T wave is also negative. While in AVR, it is negative, while AVL and AVF, all three are positive. P wave, QRS complex and T wave are upright. So you can see here, P wave is negative, QRS complex is negative, T wave is negative. While in lead AVL and AVF, all three are upright. In a V1, P wave may be upright, may be biphasic. In a QRS complex, usually there is a small R wave followed by a negative S wave. Or sometimes you can have a QS segment. And T wave is always upright. By and large, in V2, V3, P wave is upright. Sometime in V2, it may be biphasic. As you go in V2, the R wave become taller, and almost in V3, R wave is equal to S wave. But T wave is upright in all the three. You can see here, in V1, P wave is upright. There is a small R wave followed by a QS, R wave followed by a S wave, and T wave is upright. In V2, you can see a P wave followed by a little more prominent R wave, and there is an S wave, T wave is upright. As you go in a V3, the R wave is almost equal to S wave. This is we call as a R is equal to S, means chest lead is showing a equal component, and this is utilized for identifying the shift of QRS complex. So V3 is a V3 and V4 are usually the leads where R is equal to S. So we call both components will be equal. In V4, V5, V6 all are upright. But as you go from V4 to V6, the R wave will become more taller. You can see in a V4 there is a P wave followed by a R wave, and there is a small S wave. As you go in V5, the R wave height becomes more, S wave becomes smaller, and almost in V6 there is hardly any S wave. If there is a persistent of S wave in V5, V6, and if it is adequate enough, it will be more in favor of a right ventricular component, classical in case of RVH and RBBP. Now this is a 12 lead ECG having a single lead recordings. You can see V1 to V6, R wave is becoming taller. In lead 1, lead 2, lead 3, all are upright. In AVR, all components are inverted. And in AVL and AVF, all are again upright. This is a typical ECG recording we call as a normal ECG. It is a single lead recorder having a single complex. This will not give you any idea regarding rhythm. This is a recording where there is a 3 leads, 1, 2 and 3 record simultaneously. So this is a 3 lead recorder, and in each lead we have got a 3 complexes. So this is a 3 lead recorder with 3 complexes. Again, this is normal. This is a 3 lead recorder, 3 complexes, plus you have got one more lead which is a V1, which is taken as a rhythm strip, and it is a long recording of a rhythm strip which will be more than 6 seconds or maybe 6 seconds. And you can see here there are 4 complexes in each. 4 complexes. In some there are 3, but by and large there are 4 complexes. At least it should be more than 3 complexes. Again here you can see 3 lead, more than 3 complexes, and there is a rhythm strip, and here it is a L2 rhythm strips. So here you can see multiple complexes. You can see here these are 3 lead recorder, 3 complexes, and there are 2 rhythm strips, V1 and L2 are as a rhythm strips. This is a 6 lead recorder. Simultaneously there are 6 leads which are recorded, 1, 2, 3, AVR, AVL, AVF, but there is no rhythm strip. And then it has got an adequate complexes, more than 3 complexes. So it has got adequate complexes, and this is 6 leads simultaneously, V1, V2, V3, V4, V5, V6, but there is no rhythm strip. So you will not be able to identify the good rhythm. So this is a ECG which is showing you RBBB pattern, and you can see an ST segment elevation with down sloping and T wave inverted. This is classical in a Brugada syndrome. We'll be discussing some other time. This is again a 3 lead complexes, 3 lead recording simultaneously, 3 lead recording. It looks like 6 lead recorder, but this is a 3 leads simultaneously. And then you can see V1, V2 and V5 is taken as a rhythm strip. So you've got a 3 rhythm strips simultaneously. So this is one type of recording. Now we are going through what we call as the ECG rules. It is also described as a Chamberlain 10 rules, which are for a normal ECG. This is a standard normal ECG. How you label that as a standard normal ECG? Rule number 1, PR interval should be, we call, not more than 5 small square or not less than 3 small square. So we call 120 to 200 millisecond, we call 3 to 5 small square. Less than 3 normal, or between 3 to 5 is normal, but more than 5 is definitely abnormal. And if it is less than 3, it is short PR. Rule number 2, QRS complex is not more than 3 small square. It is always less than 3 small square. If it is more than 3 small square, it is wide QRS. And if it is less than 0.8, it is a narrow QRS complex. But normal QRS complex is 0.8 to 0.1. So if it is more than 3 small square, that is 0.12 second, it is considered as a broad QRS complex. We'll be discussing separately. QRS complex should be dominantly upright in lead 1 and lead 2. So lead 1 and lead 2 QRS complex is always upright, and in AVR it is always inverted. Rule number 4, QRS complex and T wave will be always in the same direction in limb leads. Say you can see in a lead 1, lead 2, lead 3, they are all upright. AVL and AVF, they are upright, while in AVR all are inverted. So they are in same direction of QRS complex, means T is always in the same direction. We call concontrance. In AVR all leads are negative. P wave is negative, QRS complex is negative, T wave is negative. Rule number 6, this we already told you, that V1 will have a small R wave, and R wave height will go on increasing as you go towards V6. And usually in V3 or V4, you will have R wave equal to V4. R wave will be equal to S wave. We call transitional zone. So transitional zone is usually at V3 or V4. So this is normal. If it shifts toward this side, then we call as an early transitional zone, and if it shifts towards left side, we call as a late transitional zone. We'll be discussing in some other lecture. So this is a typical QRS complex which shows that there is a gradual increase in the R wave from V1 to V6, and transitional zone will be either at V3 or at V4. Rule number 7. ST segment should start isoelectric except V1 and V2. Meaning ST segment is isoelectric in lead 1, lead 2, means all limblets we can call, and from V3 to V6 onwards. In V1 and V2 there may be slight ST segment elevation which is normal. Rule number 8. P wave has to be upright in 1 and 2 and from V2 to V6, but sometime in V2 you can have a biphasic P wave, and these are all the different types of P wave you can come across. By and large, P wave is always upright and usually it is curved in lead 1 and lead 2. Best way to see the P wave is in lead 2. So lead 2 is a standard lead which is utilized for mentioning anything regarding a P wave. Rule number 9. There should be no Q wave or only a small Q wave less than 0.04 second in 1, 2 and V2 to V6. Meaning if in these leads, if Q wave is prolonged, means more than 0.04 second, it is considered as abnormal. So this is, and there will be no Q wave in lead 1 and AVL. Usually there is no Q wave in lead 1 and AVL. Rule number 10. T wave must be upright in lead 1, lead 2 and V2 to V6. T wave is inverted in AVR. So by and large the T wave is always upright in 1 and 2 and will be upright in V2 to V6. If it is inverted or if it is biphasic, it is always abnormal. So these are 10 rules. In summary, now you can see this is an ECG, which is why it is normal. Here labeling is proper. Here identification, date, timings, etc. are written. Then you have got a ECG recordings also, and computer has mentioned regarding different figures regarding ventricular rate, PR interval, QRS complex, QT interval, PRT, axis, etc. PR interval has to be less than 0.12, has to be between 3 to 5 small square, means between 0.12 to 0.2 millisecond. QRS complex should be less than 0.12, that is less than 3 small square. QRS complex should be upright in lead 1 and lead 2. QRS complex and T wave should be concordant in all limblets. All waves are inverted in AVR. In V1 there is a small R wave and tallest R wave in V5, V6. And in V1, V2, S wave will be bigger than R wave and R wave will be bigger than S wave in V5 and V6. ST segment has to be isoelectric except in V1 and V2 where it is slightly elevated. P wave has to be upright in lead 1 and lead 2 but always in lead 2. In lead 2 it is upright, and from V2 to V6 P wave is usually upright, but in V2 it may be biphasic. Sometime it may be biphasic. There will be no Q wave, or usually it is a small Q wave less than 0.04 second in lead 1, lead 2 and V2 to V6. And T wave is upright in lead 1, lead 2 and V2 to V6. All these criteria should be kept in mind to identify a normal ECG. Now this is one clue which I am giving at present. You can see this ECG shows absolutely normal. There is a P wave, there is a QRS complex, there is a T wave. So on a monitor you see this particular recording, but when you examine the person, there is no detectable pulse and blood pressure is not recordable. Blood pressure is 0. Indirectly we say there is no pulse, blood pressure is 0, person will be usually unconscious. This is not ventricular fibrillation or ventricular tachycardia, because this is showing P wave, QRS complex, ST segment. This is called PEA, pulseless electrical activity, meaning electrical activity is generated, but myocardium does not contract. So there is no ejection, and as there is no ejection, no cardiac output, and when there is a no cardiac output, no pulse, no blood pressure. Hence this is called as a pulseless electrical activity. So also it was called electromechanical dissociation. So electrical activity is present, but there is no mechanical contraction of the myocardium. But standard word utilized is PEA. This is pulseless electrical activity, and this requires immediate attention, CPR, followed by resuscitation. Here I end my lecture. So ECG which shows a PQRST, no VTVF or arrest, no straight line. It is pulseless electrical activity because there is no pulse, no blood pressure. So here I end my lecture. I hope this will be useful. Please go through all this. We'll be talking about access, how you start with reading of an ECG, etc. in subsequent lectures.